My name is Leah. Standing in the middle of this opulent dinner, surrounded by a sea of shocked faces, I can still feel the weight of that moment when Colonel Thompson's voice cut through the silence. The room had been alive with the sound of toasts and laughter just moments before. Colonel Thompson, tall and imposing in his perfectly pressed uniform, had been speaking with warmth about his daughter's engagement to my brother Ethan. His medals glistened under the soft golden light, a testament to his long and distinguished military career. Then, his eyes landed on me. He stopped mid-sentence, his expression one of recognition. The room seemed to hold its breath as he set his glass down and took 2 steps towards me. My mother's hand tightened around her napkin so hard that I heard the fabric creak. Ethan's smile faltered, and he looked at me, confusion etched on his face. "Hello," Colonel Thompson said, his voice low but carrying across the room. "I'm surprised to see you here." He tilted his head slightly, studying me as if trying to place me from a long-ago memory. "Who are you to them?" The string quartet, which had been playing softly in the corner, stopped. The silence was so profound that I could hear the ice clinking in a glass several tables away. My mother's face turned as white as the tablecloth, and her mouth hung open, as if she'd forgotten how to speak. Ethan looked between me and the colonel, as if watching 2 separate stories collide. I set my glass down carefully, my hand steadier than I felt. "I'm Leah," I said. "Ethan's sister." He almost smiled, the corner of his mouth twitching. "Major Leah Parker," he said slowly. "4 years ago, you led a crucial mission briefing for my unit in the Western Sector. Thanks to your expertise, 15 of my men returned safely instead of just 9. My mother's napkin slipped off her lap and onto the floor, and no one moved to pick it up. I hadn't planned for this moment. I'd left the military 3 years ago for reasons that were my own. I'd taken a quiet job in a small office, and my family had always seen me as the underachiever, the one who didn't live up to their expectations. Looking back, it all started a few weeks ago. My mother called me late at night, just like she always did. She had no regard for the hour, treating sleep as something only other people needed. "Tomorrow, you can come to Ethan's fiancé's family dinner," she said, her tone cold. "But keep your mouth shut." I sat up in the dark, confused. "Why? Why the warning?" I asked. She snapped back immediately, "Her father is Colonel Thompson. A highly decorated war hero. Don't embarrass us." I let her words sink in, feeling the familiar sting of being treated like a burden rather than a daughter. I smiled even though she couldn't see it, and said, "Got it." Then I hung up and stared at the ceiling, wondering what I could possibly do to embarrass anyone. Ethan had been engaged to Lily for 2 months. Lily was the daughter of Colonel Thompson, a man my family spoke of in hushed, reverent tones. I'd only met Lily once, for less than 15 minutes, with my mother hovering nearby like a hawk, afraid I'd say something out of line. I was used to being the odd one out in my family. I didn't have a high-powered job, a husband, or a picture-perfect home. I lived in a small apartment and worked a job that no one at family gatherings ever bothered to ask about. The dinner was held at a posh private club downtown. The venue was filled with low-hanging gold lights and a string quartet playing in the corner. I arrived in a simple black dress, my hair pulled back, trying to blend in, because in my mother's eyes, anything flashy was an embarrassment. My mother met me at the door with a practiced smile that barely reached her eyes. She looped her arm through mine and walked me to the tables, as if I were a fragile package that might break at any moment. "Smile, say hello. Don't bring up anything from the past," she whispered. I nodded. I'd already decided that the easiest way to get through the night was to stay in the background and let Ethan have his moment. Ethan looked genuinely happy, the happiest I'd seen him in years. And for a brief moment, I was glad for him, without thinking about the underlying tension in the room. Lily was warm and friendly, squeezing my hand and saying she'd heard so much about me. I doubted it, considering how carefully my family had always downplayed my existence in important conversations. I made small talk with relatives I barely recognized, nodded along to stories about Ethan's new promotion, and sipped on a single glass of wine, aware of my mother's eyes following me across the room. Then came the toasts. Colonel Thompson stood up, his presence commanding the room. He began speaking about how proud he was of Lily and how impressed he was with Ethan's character. The room was enraptured, as they always were by men like him. But then, his eyes found me, and everything changed. After Colonel Thompson revealed my military past, the room was in a state of shock. Relatives who had ignored me all evening were now staring at me with newfound respect. Lily's hand went to her chest, and she looked at her father, a mixture of confusion and understanding on her face. Colonel Thompson turned to address the room. "I'm not easily embarrassed," he said, his voice firm. "But what embarrasses me is seeing a family undervalue someone who has achieved so much. Leah here has earned more respect in this room than many of us combined." He looked at my mother when he said it, not unkindly, but with a clear message. My mother opened her mouth to respond but found nothing to say. For the first time in my life, I saw her at a loss for words. Later, Ethan found me at the quiet end of the room, away from the whispers and the curious stares. He didn't make a big apology. He just stood there for a moment and then asked quietly, "Why didn't you ever tell me?" I told him the truth. There never seemed to be room for the real me in the version of me that everyone had agreed on. He nodded slowly, taking in my words. "I'm proud of you," he said, and I knew he meant it. It was the first time either of us had said those words to each other and truly felt them. As I was leaving, near the coat check, my mother found me. Her composure was back, but it seemed thinner, like a wall that had been patched in a hurry. She started to say something about how I should have told her and how she would have handled the dinner differently if she'd known. I just shook my head. "That's the problem. My worth to you has always been about what I can show, not about who I am as your daughter." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I simply said goodnight and walked out into the cold air, feeling lighter than I had in years. The weight of pretending to be someone I wasn't had finally lifted, and I knew that the truth, no matter how long it had been buried, would always find its way to the surface.